The First Crusade, which took place in middle of a complex series of religious determination, political aspirations, and military campaigns, was one of the most significant historical events of the Middle Ages. It all started with Pope Urban II's rousing address at the Council of Clermont in 1095, during which he called for a holy war to liberate the Holy Land from Muslim domination. Made up of various squadrons from all around Europe, in August 15, 1096, the crusading armies set out on a risky expedition into foreign territory. Along the way, they encountered numerous challenges, including internal conflicts and severe losses in battles with Muslim armies. Yet on June 19, 1097, they managed to seize Nicaea from the Seljuk Turks on July 1, 1097. They defeated the Turkish army at the Battle of Dorylaeum, and on June 5, 1098, they triumphed over the Turkish army in the Battle of Antioch. After 6 months of preparation and rest, in June 7, 1099, the Crusaders finally arrive at Jerusalem. On July 15, 1099, the Crusaders seize and sack the city of Jerusalem and massacre Muslims, Eastern Christians, and Jews. Kingdom of Jerusalem was established and Godfrey was elected as the ruler of the city. On July 29, 1099, Pope Urban II dies, never hearing news of capture of Jerusalem.
The county of Edessa, founded during the First Crusade, was a Christian state surrounded by Muslim powers. In 1143, deaths of key leaders in Jerusalem and Byzantium created instability in the region. Imam ad-Din Zengi, the powerful Muslim ruler of Aleppo and Mosul, saw an opportunity and besieged Edessa in November 1144. Jocelyn II, Count of Edessa, was away campaigning, leaving the city vulnerable. The fall. Despite a relief force sent by Queen Melisende of Jerusalem, Edessa fell on December 24 after a month-long siege. A section of the city wall collapsed, allowing Zengi troops to breach the defense. In 1144, disaster struck the Christian states in the Holy Land. The city of Edessa, a crucial Crusader outpost, fell to the Muslim force of Zengi. Panic surged throughout the Europe. This is because Edessa was a major center of Christianity in the East. Losing it was a huge blow. Pope Eugenius III and the call to arms. Pope Eugenius III saw his chance to rally the faithful. Inspired by the First Crusade success, he issued a papal bull, which means public decree, called Quantum Predecessors, urging Christian knights to take up and cross and reclaim the Holy Land. So, who answered the call? The king take the cross. Two powerful monarchs stepped forward, King Louis VII of France and King Conrad III of Germany. Fired up by religious fervor and a thirst for glory, they gathered their armies and prepared for a long journey. Both armies faced immense challenge on their way to the Holy Land. Harsh weather, treacherous terrain, and attacks by the Turkish force took a heavy toll. Supplies dwindled, morale plummeted, and it became clear that this wasn't going to be a cakewalk. The siege of Damascus. Despite the hardship, the Crusaders eventually reached Damascus, a powerful Muslim city allied with Zengi. But here, the twist. Internal conflict within the Muslim leadership presented an unexpected opportunity. The failed siege and the bitter end. Disagreement between the French and German leaders led to a poorly planned siege. The Crusaders, exhausted and divided, were forced to retreat. The dream of reclaiming Edessa was vanished. And to remind that during that time, the very famous ruler Nur ad-Din Zengi have managed to capture multiple key posts in Asha manner. By the time the Second Crusade, led by Conrad III and of Germany and Louis VII of France got there, Nur ad-Din's success has ensured that there was a little they could do to reclaim lost territories. The Crusader attempt a failed siege of Damascus, following which Nur ad-Din Zengi decided to push further toward the west. The things came to a face-off in the Battle of Inab, when Nur ad-Din Zengi destroyed the combined force of Prince Raymond of Poitiers and the Nizari assassins of Ali ibn Wafa. Following the battle, Nur ad-Din marched all the way to the coast, symbolically basing in the Mediterranean Sea to assert his dominance of Syria. The Second Crusade was a disaster for Crusaders. It exposed their weakness of Christian unity and highlighted the unity and a genius tragically by the Nur ad-Din Zengi. When his father died, the Imad ad-Din Zengi, normally there was a clash between the prince. But during that time, because of his vices, he split up his land throughout to be ruled by his brother Mosul, and he also take inside the Aleppo. So that's the reason the unity of Muslim has win the war in the Second Crusade.
Nothing. Everything. Well, you probably heard of this phrase from the movie called Kingdom of Heaven. Well, the story depicts a battle between Christian and Islam forces, led by two very important figures, Salahuddin, not this one, but Salahuddin al-Ayyubi and King Baldwin IV. How did this event come to be? Well, it is far more interesting than what has been told from the movie. The history of Salahuddin and King Baldwin IV is probably the most fascinating chapter in the Crusades, as it gives a very prominent and significant impact. Okay, so here's the overview of the history between these two. Salahuddin Yusuf ibn Ayyub, also known as the Saladin in the West, was a Kurdish Muslim military leader and a statesman who later became the ruler of Egypt and Syria, and eventually founded the Ayyubid dynasty, where he ruled from 1174 until 1193. Saladin's rise to power began in the service of the Zengid dynasty, where he distinguished himself as a capable military commander. After the death of his uncle Shirkuh, Saladin then maneuvered himself into a position of authority in Egypt, and eventually he established himself as the de facto ruler of the region. He then embarked on a campaign to unite the Muslim territories and challenge the Crusader states in the Levant. Baldwin IV, also known as Baldwin the Leper King, King of Jerusalem from 1174 until 1185. He ascended to the throne at a very young age after the death of his father, and he faced with a very heavy task of defending the Crusader states against the growing power of Salahuddin and his forces. Baldwin IV is primarily remembered as a very courageous and determined leader despite suffering from leprosy. Despite his physical limitations, he displayed a very fascinating military prowess in the effort to thwart Saladin's advances. Salahuddin and Baldwin IV clashed repeatedly on the battlefield, as each sought to assert dominance over the Holy Land. One of the most significant battles between Salahuddin and Baldwin IV was the Battle of Mongizad in 1177. Despite being vastly outnumbered, Baldwin IV led his forces to a decisive victory over Saladin's army, which temporarily halted Salahuddin's momentum and bolstered the morale of the Crusaders. This gave Baldwin IV an opportunity to strengthen his position in the Holy Land. However, despite being defeated by Baldwin IV, Salahuddin managed to take control of Aleppo, uniting Egypt and Syria under his rule. which eventually he managed to take control of Mosul. In 1185, Salahuddin officially controls Egypt and Damascus, Aleppo and Mosul. Salahuddin's military and political skill eventually enabled him to gain the upper hand. After he managed to strengthen his position in the Levant area, Salahuddin successfully captured Jerusalem in 1187 after defeating the Crusader army at the Battle of Hattin, which is a crushing blow to the Christian presence in the Holy Land.
Saladin vs. Richard the Lionheart was the epic rivalry. Saladin, also known as Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, was a Buddhist Muslim military leader and the first Sultan of Egypt and Syria. He is best known for his role in the reconquest of Jerusalem during the Crusades in 1187. Saladin was known for his chivalry, generosity, and military prowess. Richard the Lionheart, or Richard I of England, was a renowned English monarch who played a significant role in the Third Crusade. He was a skilled military leader and warrior, earning his nickname for his courage and prowess on the battlefield. The Battle of Jaffa 1192 was the final competition between the Crusaders' forces, led by King Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart, and the Muslim army of Sultan Saladin during the Third Crusade. This decisive battle resulted in a truce between the two monarchs, allowing Christian pilgrims to enter Jerusalem and securing a significant strip of land for the Crusaders from Beirut to Jaffa. The Third Crusade was launched in response to the fall of Jerusalem to Saladin in 1187. Pope Gregory VIII called for European rulers to embark on a crusade to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control. The major leaders who participated were Frederick Barbarossa of Germany, Philip II of France, and Richard the Lionheart of England. After his victory at the Battle of Abbasid in September 1191, Richard's army proceeded towards Jaffa, which the Duke and Fatah as their base for further campaigns against Jerusalem. However, negotiations between Richard and Saladin were unsuccessful throughout the winter months due to poor weather conditions and dissension among Crusaders leaders. In early spring 1192, Richard's army made another advance towards Jerusalem, but was forced to retreat due to unfavorable circumstances and growing concern about his potential French rebuilding Augustus defending Europe. In late July 1192, Saladin saw an opportunity for revenge after learning that Richard was withdrawing from the Holy Land. He led siege to Jaffa on July 27th, taking control of most part of the town except for its citadel. Upon hearing news of Jaffa's dire station, Richard quickly gathered a small army and sailed south with a large contingent of Italian sailors, believing that Jaffa had already fallen into Muslim hands. He was surprised when a defender swam out to his flagship with word of the citadel's plight. After that, Richard led his troops in a daring assault on Jaffa from the sea on August 5, 1192. The battle was fierce with both sides suffering heavy loss. Crusaders reportedly losing 2 dead knights and a small number of infantry, while Muslim casualties amounted to around 700 deaths out of their 7,000 strong force. Despite this loss, Saladin eventually retreated from Jaffa due to exhaustion and decided to open peace negotiations soon after. In conclusion, the Treaty of Jaffa was signed on September 1, 1192, bringing an end to the Third Crusade. Although Jerusalem remained under Muslim rule, Christian pilgrims were granted access to the city while Crusaders retained control over a substantial coastal street stretching from Beirut to Jaffa. This trust ensured that the Crusader presence in southern Palestine will continue for another century despite not achieving their ultimate goal, regaining possession of Jerusalem itself.
We have covered the first, the second, and the third crusade in this video. However, we will be skipping the fourth crusade because it only touches on conflicts between Christians. But the fourth crusade is what prompted Pope Innocent III to call for another crusade in April 1213. The first Christian powers to accept the call was King Andrew II of Hungary and King Leopold VI of Austria, followed by John of Brienne, the titular king of Jerusalem. There was a major participation among the Christian powers, such as the Holy Roman Empire and the Kingdom of France. The military orders, including the Teutonic Order and the Knights Templar, were also involved. In October 1217, these Christian leaders held a war council in Acre to decide and organize on the next course of action. In this meeting, they decided to first attack the Ayyubid Empire before conquering Jerusalem. The siege of Damietta was one of the major events of the Fifth Crusade. In June 1218, the Crusaders began their first course of action in Damietta by assaulting the Tower of Chains, or in Arabic, Burj al-Silsila. The tower held hundreds of soldiers and controlled the passageway into the Nile through massive iron chains. Although the Crusaders utilized ships with projectile technologies, they failed to conquer the tower. Nevertheless, the second assault resulted in victory. The tragic event was followed by the death of Sultan al-Adil, who was succeeded by his son, Al-Kamil. Few skirmishes happened between the Ayyubids and the Crusaders, but in 1219, the Crusaders successfully surrounded the city of Damietta and it fell to the Crusaders' hands. Al-Kamil attempted negotiations with the Crusaders, but the leader of the Crusaders in Egypt, by the name of Pelagius Galvani, refused the negotiation. The moment between the siege and the next major event, the Battle of Mansoura, was defined by relative inactivity. The Crusaders only managed to pillage and conquer the nearby towns such as Tinis and Berlus, while Al-Kamil took the chance to fortify the barren place called Mansoura. In July 1221, Pelagius decided to advance to Cairo, the capital of the Ayyubid Empire. This was a terrible mistake from his part because he refused to wait for the reinforcement sent by King Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire and only brought with him the remaining soldiers and small reinforcement from Cyprus and Jerusalem. The Ayyubids, on the other hand, were well versed with the terrain and the geography of the area and utilized it to their advantage. The Ayyubids managed to block the path back to Damietta, which enabled Pelagius to retreat, and Pelagius was trapped in Mansoura. Al-Kamil also managed to flood the area by opening the sluices along the right bank of the Nile River, rendering any attempt for battle useless. On 28 August 1221, Pelagius surrendered and an 8-year truce was agreed upon. Al-Kamil obtained back Damietta and prisoners were swapped between both parties. The Fifth Crusade ended with a Muslim victory.
In conclusion, the series of Crusaders are a definitive part of history. Jerusalem, which is the main focus of the campaigns and also a holy site to both Muslims and Christians, frequently change hands between them. We can learn from the courage and strategies shown by the Muslim armies and to some extent the Christian.